All right. Deconverted man here, and I've got BitchspotBlog and Rational Theist, and they're going to talk to each other now, and I'm going to bugger off pretty much. Have fun, guys!
Gotta love him.
Oh, yeah.
So, what's on your mind?
What's on my mind? Well, I mean, when I was telling him that I hadn't talked to a rational theist, that's not that they're not rational at all. That's when it comes specifically to their religious beliefs. I don't find their beliefs themselves to be at all rational, or their justifications or anything like that.
Oh, okay. Well, if I had a YouTube channel, I would call it The Reasonable Theist. And I kind of chose that moniker because although I am a theist, I do accept the fact that the universe is 13.7 billion years old, the Earth is 4.5 billion years old, the Earth is shaped oddly spheroid, and biological evolution is how simple organisms came to be more complicated organisms. And there you go.
Yeah, but there are a lot of theists who accept evolution, who accept science, and then they take that giant step to, but there's a God, and it's that giant step that they can't justify.
Right. Now, think that the majority of people I have heard of or talked to go a little bit further and say, I know X, rather than saying, I believe. What I have is a belief. It is only faith.
And I don't accept faith.
Hang on a second. What?
We're getting major after everybody's commenting on the comments. So we gotta sort it out.
Yeah, I am seeing a little bit of echo on my end.
It's gotta be.
Okay. Well, I is it still there?
Yeah, everybody's on.
No, I mean right now.
Yes. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, now see when he talked it was, but I didn't hear from myself.
No, when
a little bit.
When you say something, if you mute him briefly.
Okay, how do I do that? Oh. Okay, now I don't hear me either.
No. All right. Mute him briefly. On this. Right
Oh.
No. This is. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Test.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. No, I don't hear anything at all now. Why do I not hear me?
What is going on? No echo. Okay.
Yes, but
mute him.
No, there's no me. There's no sound.
No, I hear it.
I don't hear me.
I know you don't hear you. Unmute him now.
Okay.
Say something now.
Something now.
Yeah, something now. Maybe we just live with it?
Yeah, I don't know, because there's nothing I can change on my end.
Echo cancellation checked on.
Yeah, same here.
1, 2, 3.
Oh, something just got really loud.
Okay.
I'm getting a ton of background noise right now.
How about that?
That fixed it, yeah. You just turned off your cancellation.
Okay, so I think that's better. All right, so back to where we were. Okay, there's a difference between knowing that it is only faith. In other words, I don't have any empirical evidence, no repeatable tests, and no valid and sound logical argument. If I had such a thing, I'd present it. Probably win a Nobel Prize. But I don't have that. I recognize that what I have is faith, and that the faith itself is probably not rational or justifiable or whatever word you want to use.
Right. And there goes the whole rational theist part.
Well, but I'm rational as far as the understanding that what the facts are, and not hiding my head in the sand and trying to ignore the facts or say that well I don't know, therefore God did it, kind of thing.
Except, and I mean, don't take this the wrong way, but except that's really what you're doing. Because every theist out there from any religion, they're all doing the same thing. They're all saying, well, I've just got faith. And you don't accept their faith as being true. They don't accept your faith as being true. If we're actually trying to get to truth, then faith has to go out the window, because faith doesn't get you anywhere.
Well, I don't know if it does or doesn't. The thing is, I don't really have an answer for why I believe. Because I could theoretically become an atheist. I have listened to so many atheists online, famous and non, and a lot of what they say does resonate in me. There's a lot of reasons to not believe, and very few to believe. So why do I still believe? I believe because I believe. It might be because that's my way my brain is wired. I don't really have an answer. But my faith or whatever it is isn't really like other people I'm aware of anyway. I mean, I'm more about the idea than the actuality.
Okay, but like if you were talking about flat earthers, they believe because they believe. It's really the same thing. They don't have a good reason to believe it. They're looking for good reasons. They're looking for things that justify what they already believe, but they can't just sit down and say, here's the steps that I went through to get from A to B. They can't do that. All they can do is just say, well, I just believe. And that's not convincing to anybody who isn't in your head.
Yeah. Well, what I believe is only kind of like my problem or whatever anyway. I'm not one of those people who will try to push my beliefs down somebody else's throat. Now, I have lived with the converted man since like 2010. He's been an atheist at least that long. And we've had many conversations about faith and beliefs and so forth. And we've agreed that our views are not the same, and that we're not going to try and step on each other's toes.
And that's perfectly fine. I'm not saying that anybody has to be forced out of belief or whatever. I'm saying that if you start with the goal of truth for the sake of truth, not for feelings, not for anything else, but I want to know what is actually going on in the real world that we all share. That is the goal. How do you get there when it comes to religion? And I'm not seeing a rational path to get anywhere close.
Well, there may not be one. Or it may be something that cannot be understood today, or may not be able to be understood ever. I don't know. I mean, in that way, I guess you might call me agnostic. I don't know that there is a deity. I just believe it.
Yeah, and I
But
don't know there isn't one, but I
Yeah,
see no reason to believe it. I need a reason, not just
I
a dopamine hit in my head when I think about it.
Yeah, and I can't define what my own reason is. I don't, in that one respect, that is not rational. And I admit that, but I can't just undo it because that's the way my brain is. That's, if I found a significant reason to disbelieve, or whatever you want to call it, or deconvert, then I would do so. And I have seen a lot of reasons to, like, for instance, problems with the Judeo-Christian scriptures, for instance. There's so many problems with them that you got a couple hours to list them all, and so yeah, I mean, I do have some reasons to not believe, and yet I believe anyway. And I would agree that part of it is definitely not rational. But being rational about everything else, and yeah, I do want to know the truth. If there is a deity of some description out there, I would like to know that for a fact rather than simply believing it. Is there a path to that? I don't have any idea.
Yeah, but here's kind of the thing, and I'm kind of actually, can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, because I'm putting myself on mute so that there's no echo while you're talking. But all right, let me tell you kind of how I came to atheism, because I used to be a very, very, very strong Christian. And without going into the whole story, I decided one day that if my Christianity was rational, if it was well justified, then I ought to be able to go out and find external validation outside the Bible, outside my faith. So I sat down with the Bible and with science and said, okay, let's look at the things in the Bible. Does this match up with science? None of it did. And as soon as you start to look at it that way, the entire thing falls apart. It's just a giant house of cards. There's nothing in Christianity, nothing in the Bible that is at all defensive, at all defensible at all. And that goes for other religions too, because they're all essentially doing the same thing. You cannot justify these things. And if you can't justify it, then you have no business believing it. Now, I'm not saying you can't believe it. I'm not saying you necessarily have control over what's going on inside your head, but fundamentally, you should not just believe things just because they feel good. You should believe things because they are most likely to be true.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I know Deconverted Man's story is not that far different from yours. He was having a crisis of faith and went looking for answers, like, for instance, in archaeology, and kept finding negatives, things that were either untrue or at least not provable at all. Well, we don't know if it's true, but we don't know that it's false. And everything he kept finding was more and more negative, and not he thought he would find things that supported what he believed, and he found the opposite. And so his faith kept getting less and less until one day that was, the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back, and he became an atheist. And then the more he studied informal logic, the more he applied to what he had said before and realized that, okay, well, I was saying a whole bunch of nonsense. And usually on April Fool's Day, we will post one of his previous videos and say, hey, look, I'm a theist again. This is what I really believe. Ha, 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 ha. And some of them are pretty funny in retrospect. For myself, I would like to know the truth. I don't know how to go about getting it when it comes to whether or not there is a deity. If there is one, well, now that's an open question. Can I find that out? Well, if the one exists, then it should be findable in some way. And
But
if I don't know how to find it, that doesn't mean that it can't be done.
oh, I agree. But, and here's the caveat, you are believing a thing that you cannot prove because it feels good. And I'm not trying to say I'm in your head and know how it feels, but I've talked to thousands and thousands and thousands of theists over the years, and pretty much every single one of them has agreed that the reason they believe is because A, they've been indoctrinated into it, or B, because it just feels good. It's brain chemistry, because they just get a emotional high when they think, well, there's an imaginary man in the sky watching over me. But those are not good reasons. It's the dedication to say you shouldn't believe anything. And that's anything. And I'm not saying you necessarily have control over it, because being convinced is not within the will, but anything should not be believed if you don't have a good reason. And that goes for gods, that goes for the Loch Ness monster, that goes for Bigfoot, that goes for the flying spaghetti monster, whatever. You should not look at that and say, well, I'm going to believe it until somebody proves it wrong. It's, I'm not going to believe it until somebody proves it right. And I think that's really the disconnect that I see.
Well, I mean, if we go by Deconverted Man's philosophy, unless and until you have empirical evidence, a repeatable test, or a valid and sound logical argument, you should continue to be skeptical of any such claim. Now, 99.9% of me, which is, false, statistics, fallacy, whatever, agrees with that philosophy. I don't have, as far as I can determine, a good reason. And so there's that one piece that is irrational. And I can't control it. I can't explain it. It just is. I believe in something that has no basis for believing in it, and a lot of reasons for disbelieving in it. And yet the belief still is there. But I really want to emphasize that I try to keep an open mind, for one thing. I don't live in an echo chamber. I do listen to a lot of content from both sides of this question. One of my favorite people to listen to is Aaron Ra, who, like you, is an anti-theist. I respect the heck out of that man. He knows way, way more about biological evolution than I ever could. He knows a lot of stuff, and he's very intelligent, he's well-spoken. I don't agree with everything he said, but I like listening to him a lot. I listen to Vice Rhino, and I listen to Matt Dillahunty, and so on and so forth. And I've had a few conversations back and forth with some of Deconverted Man's followers, like Yin Yang Mountain. I don't think Yin Yang and I will ever see eye to eye, but I like him. He's an interesting person, but I can't change the way I am, at least not today.
Right. And you can't make, oh, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, I realize that part of it is not rational, but it's, it's just an avatar name, is what Deconverted Man has said. Yeah, in a sense, it is. But am I rationalizing this? Probably.
And a lot of people do, which, I mean, is what it is. Like I said, what you actually believe, what you're actually convinced of, is not something. Yeah, it's not something that's within the control of the will. You can't just jump off the top of a building and say, there's no gravity. It doesn't work that way. But, there still has to be a goal in mind, and you have to work towards that goal. Otherwise, you'll get stuck believing in all kinds of really ridiculous stuff.
Yeah. Well, I do examine a lot of things with the idea that, I should be skeptical of things. I'm not nearly as skeptical as Deconverted Man is by any stretch of the imagination, but I have learned a lot from him. I've learned a lot from Douglas Walton, who wrote the Informal Logic book that gave him his instruction into informal logic. And I want to learn more, and I do want to know the truth. And if the truth is that there isn't a deity of any description, well, then that's the truth I have to subscribe to. If I can't know one way or the other, I don't see a problem in believing, but then I don't really know. I don't know anything different. I mean, my whole life has been this, but then Deconverted Man deconverted. So maybe I could too. I don't know. I don't know what it would take. I mean, we've gone through a lot of these thought experiments. Like the question, would I prefer an afterlife but no God, or a God but no afterlife? And that was a tough one to answer, and my answers actually changed.
Yeah, well, the thing is, it doesn't matter what you prefer. You live in the world that you live in. If there was a God, there's a God. It doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter what I'd like. If there's an evil God, then there's an evil God. It doesn't matter what I think or what I believe. If there's a black hole that's going to destroy the earth in 10 seconds, it doesn't matter what I want or what I believe. It's what's actually going on. And it's the dedication to getting to that point, to just accepting reality for the sake of reality, that a lot of people, it's not just theists, a lot of people have a real problem with.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I kind of have used an analogy that if the sign says bridge out, and I say, oh, I don't believe that, they, the capital T, they, just want to control me or whatever, and I keep going, I'm going to fall into that doggone chasm and die because the bridge is out. What I believe is immaterial to the facts. It's irrelevant. The facts are what the facts are, and believe them, disbelieve them, whatever, is not going to change the facts. That's why I don't like using the word believe when it comes to things like evolution. I don't believe in evolution. I accept it. It's a fact. It's a very provable fact. I mean, there's mountains of evidence. If you discredited one piece over here, there's thousands of others. And whether I believe it or not is irrelevant. So why not accept the facts? Now, I don't know. The question about God is an I don't know. And I don't know how to find the answer.
Well, I'm only going to speak generally here. I'm not trying to speak about you, but a lot of the people that I run into, like I said before, they've been indoctrinated into the faith. It makes them feel really good inside. Therefore, that's what they want to believe. That's what they want to be true. And even if they're honest and say they don't know if it's actually true, they believe it because they get some kind of demonstrable benefits out of it. Their family will like them better if they believe this stuff or whatever. And those things are fine. But there comes a point in time in life where you have to say, okay, all of that, all of the indoctrination, the good feelings in my head, all of the social benefits that I might receive, none of those things are as important as actually coming to a view of what the actual truth is. And that's what I did when I said, I'm going to go verify all this stuff. And the more that I found, and it's just like with Deconverted Man, the more that I found that didn't fit, the more skeptical I got of the stuff that was still there. And I got to the point where, okay, I can't even accept Christianity anymore. Let's look at other religions. And I looked at other religions and they were the same thing. It got to the point where it wasn't, I want to be an atheist. It's, I can't believe this crap anymore because it's not demonstrably true. And the atheist bit is just, I don't believe you anymore. So I don't believe it anymore.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess that's the one part where I don't know if I'm indoctrinated or used to it, or it just makes me feel good, or I'm stuck, or whatever, however you want to phrase it. I have seen all the evidence against, and it doesn't look good. It looks very bad. It makes it very hard to believe anything, and yet I believe. But my belief is not anywhere close to mainstream. It's completely out of the box. So maybe something. I don't know.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. I've had friends who were pretty much in your shoes, where they just believed this thing for a lot of the reasons that I said. And then over the years, it got less and less and less and less when they weren't constantly surrounding themselves with other people who are just talking it up.
Yeah, and that might actually occur with me. It's possible. I see it as a possibility. I mean, there is every possibility that I could become an atheist. It is possible. I acknowledge that because I'm honest enough about what I have, whatever you want to call it, to realize that it's extremely flimsy at best. But I've got it, and until it's gone, it's still going to be there. And one of the questions that was asked, excuse me, was what would it take for you to switch beliefs? Like, instead of believing in Yahweh, now you believe in Krishna, or now you believe in Buddha. And it's like, that was a really good thought experiment. And it's like, well, it would have to be pretty extraordinary evidence. And it's like, well, but do you have any of that for what you currently believe? It's like, well, no, I don't. And so there's kind of like, yeah, well, so why do you believe that? And it's like, oh, I don't have a good answer. I just have really bad answers. I spent a long time trying to come up with new arguments to prove God. For one thing, I was tired of going online and seeing the same old arguments given over and over again. Kalam part 17, the argument from design part 22, and so on. The same old tired arguments have been debunked so many bazillion times. It's like, well, wait a minute. Why doesn't anybody try something new? Why are we still trotting out this stuff? And so I tried to come up with a new argument, and I failed. I absolutely failed.
Yeah. Religion has been failing at that forever. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, but at least I tried. It wasn't just oh, hey, I found this great argument and I'm going to bring it, and it's one of those that's already been debunked. No, let me try something different. At least I did try to do something different, but it took a lot of effort. And now I didn't understand informal logic anywhere near as well as I do now. And so I wouldn't even try to make this argument now, because I understand where my logical fallacies are in that particular argument. I was basically trying to shift the burden of proof is what I was trying to do. But I also got defeated by my opponent in that debate by his knowledge of science and basically giving me fact after fact after fact that totally knocked my argument out of the park. And it was just humiliating.
Yeah, but science doesn't really do anything. And I know a lot of people will go, well, but science is this and science is that and all. No, atheism isn't about science.
No.
Atheism is about, do you have any evidence to back this up? Yes or no? And the
Right,
answer is
right.
no. Therefore, we're not going to believe it.
Yeah.
People get really confused with science and logic and all the rest of that because they assume, at least a lot of religious people do, that atheism and science are synonymous, and that's not the case.
No, it isn't. Although science does provide answers where religion doesn't.
Well, science just evaluates reality as reality is.
Yeah.
And if we look at the world and say, okay, here's what the world actually seems to be, we're not perfect, of course. We're still working. Otherwise, we wouldn't still need science. But if this is the world that we actually see, and this is the world we might expect to see if there was a God, and they're not the same thing, there's a problem. And the religious don't want to talk about that problem.
Yeah.
They want to make excuses for why that problem isn't really a problem. But it's all stuff that they just yanked out of their backsides.
Oh, absolutely.
So, I mean, I would love to see them actually be rational. I mean, try to be rational. I mean, you're at least trying to be rational.
Yeah.
But most religious people that I deal with, and if you watch my channel, I do this twice a week, every week, and more. But absolutely none of these people actually have anything remotely credible. They don't even try. And when people go back and point out what they're doing wrong, they ignore that and go back and do it again, because it's not about the truth. It's about the emotional comfort. It's about the feeling they get when they believe this stuff. It's not about, is this actually true? And I have debates all the time with people who just cannot get that through their head. And that's the problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I really do have a desire for the truth, whatever that truth is. I used to lie a lot. And when Deconverted Man came to live with me, I learned very quickly that he hates liars. We've had some very, very bad fights about that, physical fights, and I learned very quickly not to lie to him. And then I decided to just be honest. And being honest means I have to be honest with myself. So when I came to accept that this is just faith and only faith, it's only a belief, it's not anything more than that, and I can't prove it, I can't justify it, I can't rationalize it, although maybe I do try to rationalize it. At least I want to be honest about where I am with it. And if there is a tomorrow version of me that says, nope, that's it, I don't believe anymore because I can't, do this, well, then that's where I'm going. If that's where I'm going, that's where I'll go.
Yeah, nobody can change you against your will. That's the one thing that a lot of people don't understand, especially a lot of atheists who sit there and say, well, I'm going to convince the theists that they're wrong. No, you're not. You are not going to at all. You cannot change their mind without them being complicit. You need to reach that point. And I'm not trying to psychoanalyze you or anything, but you will hopefully eventually reach a point where you care more about the truth than whatever is making you hold on to religion. And when that day comes, that day comes. Don't feel bad about it until it happens. But that's kind of the point that everybody needs to be at. Because when I was a theist, I thought like you do. I mean, I was convinced that it was all real and I thought I had good reasons. I was just wrong. But I could not imagine giving it up because I really wanted it to be true. And then, well, didn't work out that way.
Right. And I absolutely respect your position. And of course, Deconverted Man's. I mean, he is my brother after all. And I accept that absolutely may be my path at some point. And like I said, we talk about this a lot. I mean, well, all he does is, evaluate what other people are saying for logical fallacies. And if I'm using a logical fallacy, which, everybody does from time to time, well, he'll be quick to point it out. And I've learned a lot already. I want to learn more. I want to know more. And I want the truth. And I want facts. And, well, I'm going to keep looking for the truth. And I keep looking for the facts. And, in the meantime, I'm going to hold on to what I'm holding on to because that's where I'm at. And that might be irrational, but as long as I'm continuing to be rational with everything else, I think I'm okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. I mean, one of the big things about being rational, it's not about what you think. It's about learning how to think. It's about learning how to approach the real world, how to approach knowledge, how to approach investigation, and doing it in the most rational, evidence-based way you possibly can. And if you can learn to do that for some things, you can learn to do that for everything.
Yeah. No, I agree with that.
I find tons of people who they might be atheists, and there's a lot of atheists out there who are atheists for really bad reasons, but a lot of the things that they believe that go beyond religion, they are very, very, very poorly understood, poorly rationalized, poorly everything. They just really want to believe. And I think that is a big problem, not just with the religious, but with humanity in general, is that there's a lot of people out there who just run around with their emotions on their sleeves because they really just want it to be true. But that doesn't make it true. And separating the want it to be from what is, that's the real challenge that a lot of people seem to have.
Yeah. And there's a part of me that wants it to be true. That much I will definitely say. But if I had either evidence that it was completely untrue in every sense of the word, that's what I would go with. Or if I just lost my capacity to believe, well, then that's what I would go with. But, I don't know.
But nobody knows. That's the whole thing.
Yeah,
Nobody can know. I mean, we can't know anything to any degree of absolute certainty. I can't even be sure I exist. You can't be sure you exist. I can't be sure the world. You can't even be sure. You could be part of somebody's insanely complicated dream.
Yeah,
you may not exist at all. So
right.
You can't even go with, well, I don't know, because knowledge doesn't work like that. Knowledge works in incremental degrees. You know enough about a thing to make a conclusion, but everything that you supposedly know in your head, it's all provisional until you learn something else. Then you have to turn around, go back and reevaluate what you thought before.
Yeah. I mean, I've contemplated this whole question of faith versus a lack of faith versus, being an atheist. And at the moment, at least, it would cause me too much cognitive dissonance to deconvert. I don't know if that's good, bad, or indifferent, but that's kind of where it is. I know that Deconverted Man went through that, and it was really, really hard for him to let go. And once he did, he was fine. It took him a long while to come to grips with the new reality of himself. It was a long journey, and it was a difficult one. I'm glad he made it through to the other side. But I don't know, at least right now, I'm not able to do it.
Yeah, but a lot of atheists go through that. They will stop believing in God because there's no evidence for it, but they'll be terrified of hell. And you point out, you go, why? Because you don't believe there's a God to send you to hell. There are no sins because there's no God to sin against. There's none of this stuff. Why do you believe this one totally bizarre idea? And it's because it's been shoved into their head from a young age. And that's why religion does it. they indoctrinate kids from a young age, because once that gets in there, before they have the capacity to think rationally, it's really, really hard to get out. So that's exactly why the religious do it, because they know, whoever said, give me the kid by the age of 7 and I'll show you the man, Socrates, I think, or Aristotle, one of those. But they understand that brainwashing kids is really, really easy, and brainwashing adults is really, really hard.
Right. Now, over in the comment section here on the channel, BS Lewis asked me if I believed in a devil, and I don't. I don't believe in Satan, and I don't believe in hell, because assuming, for the sake of argument, that there is a deity, and assuming that that deity cares even one whit about the human species, that deity would not create such a place and would not send people to such a place. It's totally against, I wouldn't even send my worst enemy there, or the worst person who ever existed in history. No way. And if I'm more moral than God is, I mean, come on, give me a break.
Absolutely, you are.
Yeah. At least as believed by the majority of Christians out there, I am way more moral than that. So I have a problem with that particular theology, just on the, for everything. The other part of that is I was raised Jewish, and Judaism as a whole doesn't recognize the concept of hell or Satan. That's predominantly a Catholic invention, which has permeated into the rest of the church as it exists today. And, I don't agree with it. I don't like it. It bothers me that people are still out there saying, oh, you do X, therefore you're going to go to hell. And it's like, well, who promoted you to judge and jury? And I don't agree with that idea either.
Right.
If you're out there living your life and you're doing whatever and you're not harming other people, then whatever floats your boat, man. Live and let live. I mean, a Muslim and I are never going to agree on a lot of things. But if that's who they are and that's what they want to be and believe, then more power to them. If you are a homosexual and that is your life, then more power to you. It's not a life for me, but then I'm not homosexual. I'm a heterosexual. So I can't judge what somebody else thinks or feels, or when you put it out on the internet, I can point out logical fallacies. If you say something that is demonstrably untrue, like the earth is flat, I can point out, no, you're absolutely wrong about that. But if what you're doing is done in private and I don't know about it, go for it.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really care what anybody does that doesn't affect me or other people. And for Germania, no, I don't want to sin, because sin is an absurd concept. Anyway, it pisses me off when theists pull that one. You just want to sin. No, because I don't believe in a God, so there's no such thing as sin. That's a stupid thing to say to an atheist, but these aren't right people.
Well, one of the worst ones that Deconverted Man gets from time to time is, you were never a real Christian, which is a no true Scotsman fallacy.
Well, so no true Christian fallacy. Yeah.
That one really upsets him sometimes.
Yeah, but
because he was.
But I've done videos on that where one group of Christians will point at another group of Christians and say they're not real Christians.
Oh,
well, cool, because that other group of Christians can point right back and say the same thing about them.
Yeah, exactly.
But they don't want to hear that.
Oh, no, no, definitely not.
Going back to what you were saying before about gods, though, gods are what gods are. Gods are not what humans make gods out to be. We can't say, well, this God has all these omni properties, because obviously you can't prove any of that's true. Those are just things that humans have stapled onto them because it makes us feel good. If there's an evil God, and somebody asked about the problem of evil, if there's an evil God, then the problem of evil isn't a problem, because,
then
if you remove the problem of good, probably true. But if you pull any of those omniproperties, the problem of evil goes away. And if Christians just wanted the problem to go away, they could just go, okay, well, God isn't omnibenevolent anymore. Cool. That would solve the problem, but they don't want to do that because this is all based on feelings, not on facts.
Or that God doesn't have this personal connection to us, and it's like the deists. God created things and then just left it alone. That would solve the problem of as well.
Yeah, but then they wouldn't get where they want to go, and the churches wouldn't make money because nobody would come and sit in the pews and put money in the plate to listen to some idiot in the front in a dress.
Exactly.
That's the problem. Church, all religions really, but especially Christianity in the Western world, it's a giant scam. It's just people talking to you, inventing problems, and then proposing solutions for a paycheck. That's all it is. Why are people so blind to that?
Sounds like Congress.
That's probably true too.
Oh, if I could solve the classic Erythro dilemma, yin yang, I would make so much money it wouldn't be funny. But yeah. Okay, well. Yeah. I like that comment. I can solve it, but I choose not to.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, the problem is you can't solve it because everything they say about God isn't real to begin with. It's not demonstrable, which is every time somebody comes up and says, well, here's what God is like. Really? Prove it. Show me how you know that. Prove it to me that you know that. And then they just run for the hills because they can't do any of it.
Right. You know, my personal philosophy, like for instance, regarding whether or not Jesus was an actual living human person or not, I don't think it much matters. I think what matters more is the philosophy. Doing good to others, including your enemies. Helping, loving, although that's not all there is to it because there's a lot of negative in there too. But if you took all the positive stuff, if a lot of people lived by that do good to others philosophy, the world would be a much better place than it is. But everybody's about themselves. We're all selfish people. I mean, really.
Well, of course, because that's what evolution made us.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole thing with
cooperate.
Well, we have to because we're a social species. If we didn't cooperate, we'd die. So we kind of have to. I mean, the whole thing with Jesus, and people hate it when I do this, but you know, they'll say, well, Jesus was real. Great. Define which Jesus you mean. Because there's two potential. Well, no, there's two potential Jesuses here. There is a potential real person or persons upon whom all of the later mythic stuff was posthumously draped. You know, somebody who might have had some teachings that a bunch of people liked, and then giant game of telephone, and it turned into what we got in the Bible. Or you could be talking about the magical miracle man in the Bible who, you know, rose from the dead and all that crap. Which one are you talking about? Because they are not the same thing. The one in the Bible obviously never existed. The one outside the Bible could have, but we have absolutely no way of knowing anything about them because they've been so horribly mythologized that you can't go in and just pick out elements of, well, this was real and this wasn't, and this was real and this wasn't. You can't do that. So Jesus, in any demonstrable way, didn't exist because we can't tell what he might have actually been, and what we have obviously isn't true.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I know that historically we do have a lot of evidence for there being quite a few people around that time who were preaching a the end is coming soon kind of message and gathering followers. And there were, you know, some more popular than others, some that, you know, had a little following, some that had a big following, and some in between. And there were a lot of people like that in that time because it was a very popular thing, at least in Judaism at that particular time. And so you get 2 or 3 people in the same area that are doing about the same thing, and then these stories get put together, and that's probably more like what happened than what we actually got in the books. I think you're right there.
Yeah, well, there was a Messiah on every street corner back in that time. It was all very, very common. There's some in the Bible that they talk about, and we know quite a few more who weren't in the Bible. But just saying, well, Jesus was the Messiah. Yeah, there was a ton of them. It's not that hard to come up with. Oh, and by the way, show me proof of humans. That one's really easy too. Buy me a plane ticket to wherever you are. I will bring a baseball bat, and then I will beat you over the head with it until you A, admit that humans are real, or B, pass out from blunt force trauma. It's real easy.
Some of these guys in the comments, I'm somewhat familiar with. I mean,
that's an
ad-bat-ulum, yeah. And some of them I don't know that well, but some, I enjoy reading these comments because, even if I don't agree with it, I like when somebody makes me think.
Oh yeah, I mean, I love comments even from theists. I respond to all comments, even theists. Usually those don't go well, but But mostly it's just done for fun. So it doesn't really matter if the questions are serious or not.
Right. Okay. I really enjoyed talking to you today. I don't really want to cut it short, but I do have a long trip ahead of me this afternoon. So I thought that maybe now would be the time to go over some of the questions that are in the comments.
Fine with me.
Okay. Well, Deacon Riddiman, do you want to handle that, or?
Okay. What if Yin Yang asks, what about the issue where beliefs inform actions? So your beliefs.
Oh, if beliefs inform actions, I don't allow my beliefs to inform my actions.
You can't help it.
Well,
you can't help it.
You can't help it. But I mean, okay. For instance, in voting, I'm going to vote for the person that I think, based on all available evidence, is the best person for the job. Now, it may turn out that they're not. I might be wrong.
Usually there is nobody qualified for the job at all, but that's something else.
Yeah, well, more qualified than the other idiot.
Yeah. But yeah, your beliefs do inform your actions, at least to some degree. Now, if you're aware of it, you can try to limit the damage. A lot of people aren't aware of it, but you can't control it completely. And that's one other good reason why people like me and people like Deconverted, we go out and do the job every single day to say, hey, you believe stupid stuff and it's affecting society. Knock it off.
Right. Well, I do work to try to limit it as much as possible. Now, like as I said earlier, I listen a lot to R.N. Ra, who lives in Texas, which is one of the worst states for having conservatives make up the rules that are being applied. And it's really, well, it's more than irritating him. It's really pissing him off because some of these rules are harmful, not just to society in general, but atheists particularly. And that's the kind of thing I am absolutely dead set against. I do not want religion involved in politics or vice versa. We should have a clear separation of church and state. And unfortunately, we don't. And on top of that, then we have all the people trying to campaign to make America a, quote, Christian nation, end quote, which would be a big mistake. And they don't realize what they're asking for.
Yeah, because we see what happens when you make nations, Islamic nations. They don't turn out well.
Yeah, well, the whole reason for people coming to this country in the first place was to escape a theocracy. The Church of England controlled everything. And people said, well, no, but we want to worship this way. And they said, either you join us or die. And so they said, okay, well, we'll leave.
Yeah, and a
they
lot of them
did.
came here and did the same thing. They said, "Hey,
Well,
now
that's
that
true too.
now that we have power, we're going to do the same thing because that's fundamental to religion. Not just religion, but I've said this many times before. A lot of people want everybody to be just like they are. That's all they want, because if everybody is just like you are, thinks the way that you do, believes what you do, you don't get challenged. And if you don't get challenged, you don't get uncomfortable. So a lot of people just want everybody to be a clone of them, because then they can feel good about all the crap they believe.
Yeah. Okay, next question.
Okay, I use yin yang. So God is guilty of creating or responsible for X. Do you have any evidence for that? / why do you have bad answers in regards to belief? And are you just trying to believe a God exists, or are you trying to prove a God exists? Or are you trying
well, let me take that one piece at a time because it's too much to hold in my head.
God is guilty of creating or responsible for creating. Is there any evidence for that?
Okay. Yin Yang was asking, is God guilty of creating or responsible for creating, and do I have any evidence for that? No, I don't. What's the next piece of that?
Why do you only have bad answers?
Why do I only have bad answers? Because I don't have any good ones. If I had a good answer, I would definitely give it, but I don't. So either I have no answer or a bad answer. And I know that that's not satisfying, but it's honest. What's next?
Are you just trying to believe, or are you trying to...
Oh, am I just trying to believe, or am I trying to prove God? If I had a way to provide any kind of proof, I would definitely be bringing it, and not just to YouTube, to everybody. Any kind of empirical evidence, any kind of repeatable test, or even a valid and sound argument. Although arguments don't prove things, at least it would give, food for thought and roots for more investigation. I don't have any of that. If I did, I'd bring it, but unfortunately, I don't have it. I don't think anybody does.
Blaster Master said I need to get closer to the microphone.
Yeah, that helps.
And then he also asked, you said that you just believe. Do you care if what you believe is true or not?
Yes, I do care. If what I believe is not true, I don't want to believe it. Now, I have seen reasons to not believe it, but I haven't come to whatever that threshold number of, I believe 999 things. Oh, this was the 1,000th thing. That was it. I haven't come to that, whatever that is.
And then last one, and we'll switch over here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Armenia wanted to know why God sent Jesus. Was there another way? I don't know.
Oh, well, I think that there definitely should have / could have been another way. I mean, okay, assuming that we're talking about the God of the Bible and that is the actual God who actually exists, very definitely could have and should have come up with a different / better way. He created this system, therefore the system is his fault. And it's like, oh, well, I set up a system that's impossible for you to follow, therefore I'm going to judge you for not following it. Well, that doesn't make much sense. Oh, well, here's a way that you can get past my rules that I made. Wait a minute, why don't you just change the rules? Yeah, I know, I agree that I could come up with a better way with my eyes shut and 2 hands tied behind my back, and I know Deconverted Man could as well, but yeah, I do agree that there was a better way. So anyway,
okay, he's got to jet off. I was hoping we'd do longer, but he's got.
No worries.
Yeah. Well, this came close. BitchspotBlog. We're gonna change his name to Nerdy Theist so people don't complain. But did this fulfill your quota? Do you think that this is kind of like the most rational theist that you could have encountered?
It's still pretty much what it was before, because like I said, there are some really rational, smart people out there. If you go talk to Francis Collins, who used to run the Human Genome Project, he's a brilliant man until it gets to his religion, when his brain just leaks out his ears. That's what I object to, are the people who can't go beyond faith into saying, okay, here's the good reasons I have for believing any of this, because they don't have any good reasons.
Well, at least he admits
to that. No, he did great. He did fine. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that's, when I say a rational theist, I mean somebody who doesn't just rely on faith 100% of the time. I mean somebody who can have a discussion. Exactly.
Right. So, yeah, but I thought it would be interesting, because I thought, well, I know you guys are gonna clash, but I also know that he's gonna, be unlike any of the people that you're usually talking about on your channel. So, I hopefully it was entertaining. Of course, people ask really good questions in chat, and the thing that I had thought of was, well, maybe his brain is this way. I don't know if there's been a test to figure that out, or if there is a test to figure that out. That'd be interesting. So I'm not aware of the science on that, or if there's anything for that. Because I don't want it to just be a potential excuse of like, well, I can't help but believing it. It's like, well, I mean, we accept that for being gay.
Well, I mean, all we are, everything that we are, is electrochemical signals in a 3-pound sack of meat in your head. That's all that we are. So, wiring here and there, different chemical makeups, all of that explains everything that we are. None of it's actually wrong. It just is how that particular individual is, unless they're doing something really, really bad, like molesting kids. Thank you, Catholic priests. But you can't get mad at people for being who their brains make them out to be. And one thing I wanted to do, because somebody was asking over in the comments, there were like 2 questions that went by. One, no, this isn't facepalming Aslan. It was just a picture I found online once. I don't even like lions. I'm kind of a fan of cheetahs, and lions kill a bunch of cheetah cubs just for fun. So I just use it because it was convenient. And the other one, something about, do I feel good believing good things? Well, of course we all do, because we're just our own brain chemistry. The things that we are convinced are true, that fires off dopamine in our brains. But as I pointed out in a video, it's not out yet, it'll be out in a couple of months, but I pointed this out, that the 9/11 terrorist airplane hijackers, they got the exact same thing in their brains flying those planes into buildings, because they were convinced that what they were doing was right, and that makes them feel good. So making yourself feel good doesn't actually mean anything.
Yeah. Okay, well, we hit the hour mark somehow. We managed to do it. We pulled it out of there at the last moment. We've saved the world from insanity.
Oh, come on. We could do this for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah, I know. But BitchspotBlog, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Me and you will talk and maybe do a conjoined complain about a video on your channel at some point, or whatever you want to do.
Sure, we can do that.
Thanks to everybody for commenting in the not the comment section, because screw the comment section. I don't want to post in the comment section. I want to post in the chat.
Yeah.
I blame Germania.
Yeah, I do too.
Okay. All right. Live for this. Later, everyone.
Bye.
Stay here. Goodbye after I hit the button. Okay, I'm hitting the
hitting
button. Screw you, everybody.
Hit the button.
Okay.
Lobster